Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing quite possibly the rarest team you could possibly run in the Master Premier Cup. This team features my 3 Shadow Perfect IV Pokemon. On the lead, we have Shadow Hundo Tyranitar, as the save switch, Shadow Hundo Salamence, and as the closer, my Shadow Hundo Ursaluna. Now, is this a team you should run in the Master Premier Cup? Absolutely not. These Pokemon do not cover each other's weaknesses whatsoever. But against all odds, I was actually able to go exactly even on the day running this crazy team. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's go triple Shadow Hundo. We pick up a great lead in the first match, leading Shadow Tyranitar into Goldengo. My opponent save switches into Annihilate, and I respond with Salamence. If my opponent has Ice Punch, I'm getting one shot, but luckily they do not. Instead, they're just going to go for the Rage Fist. The bad news for me is that I wasn't the fastest on the counter switch, so my opponent is able to get to a second Rage Fist. I'm going to throw one more Dragon Tail and then go for the Fly. Salamence does have incredibly fast pacing to both Brutal Swing and Fly. Fly connects, Annihilate gets KO'd, and my opponent brings back in Goldengo. Goldengo is going to try and go for the Astonish down, but I believe I can barely hang on here. Brutal Swing is going to connect for huge damage. Shadow Hundo Salamence barely clinging to life as I make Brutal Swing number 2, and that is going to pressure the final shield away from my opponent. Now, I can just bring back in the Shadow Tyranitar, and I have enough residual energy that I can outpace them and make the Brutal Swing before a potential Focus Blast. So I fire off the Brutal Swing, Goldengo puts up the shield, and if they're shielding, they definitely have the Blast. So I will respect it with the Tyranitar. There's the Focus Blast. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to game number 2, leading Shadow Tyranitar into Annihilate. This is the worst case lead. I am ABA weak to fighting, so at this point the game is basically over. The good news for me is that my opponent is on low kick Annihilate, so they actually don't do a lot of fast move damage. But this is still double super effective, so Tyranitar is in absolute shambles. I'm going to be no shielding here, calling my opponent not having close combat, and they don't. They go for the Ice Punch. I'm able to survive, make it to the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is going to pressure away his shield, and now I send in Salamence. Salamence is going to have to respect this, because obviously Ice Punch is double super effective. My opponent will full send the Ice Punch, and then send in Metagross. But wait, I think my opponent has just made a pretty severe error, because Metagross doesn't beat a Shadow Salamence that's actually off energy, because of just how quickly I'm able to spam out these Brutal Swings. I can now fire off another Brutal Swing, Metagross forced to put up the shield, and this Metagross is in for an absolute world of hurt. They should be on 10 Shadow Claws worth of energy, meaning I can shield up the Meteor Mash, throw one more Dragon Tail, and KO them with the Brutal Swing. So Metagross has been completely dealt with. Shadow Salamence honestly putting in some pretty nice work so far. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is Hydreigon. Hydreigon does not cap tie the Salamence. I'm able to get the Fly. Fly is going to hit for huge damage here. Almost picking up the one-hit KO. I send in Tyranitar, snipe them down with the Dragon Breath. And now, I'm going to get to double resisted Tackle Down and Annihilate with Shadow Hundo Ursaluna. Ursaluna hits the field, Ice Punch, super effective damage. They make it to Ice Punch number 2, and I hope that Ursaluna will be able to hang on. Ursaluna survives the Ice Punch, gets the Tackle Down, and despite being ABA weak to fighting, somehow we escape with the win. We move to the next match, leading Shadow Tyranitar into a Waterfall Gyarados. This is a pretty bad lead. I'm going to stay in and try and play it out, but I am ABA weak to Waterfall, so it's not like I can really afford to send in the Ursaluna. I'm going to overfarm quite a bit, building up past the Stone Edge, going to bait with the Brutal Swing, hoping my opponent decides to match shields. They will match shields. I switch into Salamence, catching the Aqua Tail, and getting a free Dragon Tail sneak as well. Now I'm up energy on the Salamence. Unfortunately, in comes Mamoswine. I did need to bait this out. My backline is very weak to ice, but Mamoswine is just shredding me. Fly hits for huge damage. My opponent somehow waits a turn. I don't know if they lagged or if they waited a turn there. They should have been able to farm me down in 2 Powder Snows, but it ends up being a simultaneous KO. I'm going to wait down the timer, bring in Ursaluna. In the back is Kingambit, and this is very, very bad. This team is triple weak to Kingambit. Even though I have a ground type on the team, Ursaluna is just so incredibly slow to get the charge moves that it's still not a good matchup. They send in the Gyarados, I bring in the Tyranitar, and I'm going to fire off Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing does actually take the knockout. That's a little bit unfortunate, as now my opponent is going to get an insane amount of farm with Kingambit. My opponent's final Protect Shield of the match is going to have to be used on the high horsepower that is stored on the Ursaluna. So as I fire off back-to-back Brutal Swings, they know they can never afford to shield. The bad news for me is that Kingambit makes the back-to-back foul plays right here, and that means this game is going to end in defeat. My put up the shield, but wait, they go for an Iron Head, completely messing up their pacing, and we're gonna get the win. I'm now with the back-to-back Ice Punches. I fire off the first, they put up the shield, but I missed the button for the second Ice Punch, and just like that, we end up losing the game. That was a true game of win-con hot potato. My opponent had me completely dead to rights if they just go double foul play. They iron-headed, which messed up their pacing and gave me a win-con, but then I just missed the Ice Punch button, and that just gave the game right back to my opponent. We move to the next match, Shadow Tyranitar into Dragonite. Dragonite Thunder Punch baits and then safe switches out of the matchup as they send in Waterfall Gyarados. I farm up past the Stone Edge, baiting with a Brutal Swing, able to get the shield from my opponent, but unfortunately my opponent is barely able to outpace here. The game would have been a lot easier had I gone for the catch and sneak onto the Salamence, but unfortunately I did not. Now I'm going to overfarm to the max. I decided to full send the Stone Edge here, trying to punish an O-Shield. Gyarados tries to call a bait, and they're going to get one-hit KO'd. Back in comes the Dragonite, but I can build up to the Stone Edge, bait with the Brutal Swing. My opponent's already no-shielded one Stone Edge. I'm betting they're not wanting to go for that again. Now I can just send in the Salamence. Salamence will be able to take a Thunder Punch pretty comfortably here, so... Oh no, they're on Dragon Claw! Dragon Claw picks up the one-hit knockout, and this game is just going off the rails. I was about to say I tanked that very comfortably, but I do not survive a Dragon Claw. Now I send in the Shadow Hundo Ursaluna. Ursaluna, one of the Master League Premier's worst Pokemon because Tackle is atrocious. But with Dragon Claw, they don't have superpower. They send in Metagross in the back, and Ursaluna is going to do something. Ursaluna makes the high horsepower, picking up the one-hit KO. Back in comes the Dragonite. We get the Tackle down. My goodness, that game was an absolute roller coaster. We move to the next match, Shadow Tyranitar into Avalugg. Honestly, I'm not too familiar with what Avalugg runs. I imagine they're probably on Icy Wind or Avalanche, but either way, their pacing is not going to be the greatest. I can farm up past the Stone Edge, bait with the Brutal Swing, and I just really need to get rid of this Avalugg as quickly as possible because Avalugg is very bad news for my backline. This Avalugg is on Avalanche. My opponent safe switches into an Ursaluna. Ursaluna, as I mentioned, is not a particularly strong Pokemon, so I'm pretty surprised to see an opponent using it. I'm able to land the Brutal Swing. I pivot out as they make a potential punch, and then get a catch onto my own Ursaluna. And I end up catching a Thunder Punch where it's double resisted. I honestly was not trying to catch a Thunder Punch. I just wanted to bank a bunch of Tyranitar energy without tanking a hit. But man, getting a double resisted catch ends up working out very nicely. My opponent is on Thunder Punch, Fire Punch, so a very different moveset to what I'm running. I overfarm quite a bit, fire off the Ice Punch, and Ice Punch will secure the knockout. If my opponent brings back in the Avalugg, I think there's a very real chance I can make the high horsepower. In comes the Avalugg, I get there, they go for a catch on a Garchomp, but Garchomp is going to lose so much of its health bar. This is a Shadow high horsepower Garchomp, loses over half its health bar, and now I can send in Shadow Salamence. I really have to hope Salamence can survive a Twister. Twister lands, Salamence barely able to hang on. Salamence does get the farm down, and I will exit with the fly ready for the Avalugg. Avalugg can't afford to shield, because if they shield, I just have a Stone Edge on the Tyranitar. They do put up the shield, and I guess they've just chosen to get knocked out by the Stone Edge. I can bring back in the Tyranitar, Stone Edge the Avalugg, and we're able to get the win. We move to the next match, leading Shadow Tyranitar into Metagross. Now this matchup might seem like it's a good matchup for Tyranitar, but Tyranitar does actually lose all even shield scenarios. And that's because even though I outpace, I can never make 4 Brutal Swings before they're able to make 3 Meteor Mashes. I will be able to get the Metagross very low, but this is a matchup where ideally I would just want to try and get all shields down and then maybe go for like an aggressive Tackle down or maybe a Dragon Tail down with one of my back 2 Pokemon. So I put up the shield, fire off the Brutal Swing, and I'm able to get the shield back. My opponent's doing a very nice job of over farming, trying to ensure that if I no shield, they exit with quite a lot of energy. I'm going to overfarm as well. Massive overfarm on my part. Fire off the Brutal Swing, hoping for the shield, but they decide to let it go. I still have a very healthy Tyranitar. My opponent brings in a very spicy Pokemon, Excalibur. I farm up past the Stone Edge. They have to respect this. They're just going to get one shot. I go for the bait, but what a bait call. They end up no shielding. I get the catch onto Ursaluna, but oh, that bait call was absolutely disgusting. Glaive Rush lands for big damage. It's going to be a Shadow Mamoswine in the back. Can I even make the high horsepower? I cannot, and I'm forced to settle for the Ice Punch. I do still have a banked Brutal Swing loaded on the Tyranitar, and Ice Punch gets the shield. Brutal Swing should just about take the knockout here. I bring in Tyranitar, and where did my energy go? I could have sworn I watched myself bank a Brutal Swing. The Brutal Swing just isn't there. They knocked me out with a high horsepower, and I'm just going to get swept by the Mamoswine. My opponent played really well in this game. That was an amazing bait call with Excalibur, but I feel like I had a really good shot if I actually had my Brutal Swing, but my Brutal Swing just disappeared. I don't know where it went. I'll send it in, so hopefully the devs can figure out what happened. but what the heck, man? I should have been in a pretty good spot there, but unfortunately, the game just said no. We move to the next match, once again seeing Baxcalibur, but this time it's going to be an Ice Fang Baxcalibur. My opponent makes an insane catch as they predict my Stone Edge and get the catch onto Ursaluna. I'm going to look to rebank a massive amount of energy and then bring my Ursaluna into theirs. I'm always going to be no shielding. Ursaluna never really does a lot of damage, at least when it's going for Ice Punch, so I can tank the Ice Punch and then fire off an Ice Punch of my own right before they're able to make their next move. This should come decently close to taking the knockout. My opponent will put up the shield, and I don't really think I can afford to give up my final shield because the Baxcalibur in the back does have energy, so I'm just going to sacrifice the Ursaluna. And then I have so much energy on Tyranitar that I feel like it's not worth bringing it in, so I'm just going to send in the Shadow Salamence. Salamence will hit the field. I'm just going to go for the Brutal Swing. My opponent sends in Baxcalibur, and they sneak through an Ice Fang on the catch. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded, but now I can just go for the combo play, bring back in the Tyranitar, and Brutal Swing is going to be knocking out the backs. Baxcalibur will fall. If my opponent brings back in the Ursaluna, which they can, I can overfarm slightly, knock this out as well. And clearly whatever they had in the back did not want to see my remaining Pokemon, as they will concede the match. We pick up a pretty terrible lead in the next match. Shadow Tyranitar into Garchomp. Garchomp is a very good matchup in a Tyranitar. Dragon Breath does hit for super effective, but man, Garchomp takes Brutal Swings very, very comfortably. Very close to the next Brutal Swing. My opponent has farmed up a massive amount of energy. That is a very nice Twister Fate. I wait the turn, and they get the catch onto Florges. Unfortunately, this team has 0 Pokemon that beat Florges. I'm going to look to rebank energy on Tyranitar and then bring in the Ursaluna, but obviously Ursaluna is going to take super effective damage from Chilling Water. Ursaluna does have pretty big stats. That's kind of the only thing that's going for it. Ursaluna, there's a very fine line of if it ever gets a decent fast move, it's going to absolutely be the best mon in this format. But unfortunately, it has a terrible fast move, so it is a pretty terrible Pokemon in this format. I'm going to fire off the double debuff high horsepower. It is not going to take the knockout. My opponent's able to make a move and send in Metagross. Unfortunately, Metagross gets a huge energy head start because my switch timer was not yet up. I'm able to bring in Tyranitar, but Tyranitar is just so far behind. Meteor Mash would take the knockout. I put up the shield, but there's just no path forward for me in this game, unfortunately. My opponent has played this very, very well. That catch out of the Florges was just devastating. I think even without the catch out of Florges just kind of destroys this team anyway. We're going to get knocked out by the Meteor Mash, and Shadow Salamence, it's pulled off some pretty cool plays in this video, but there's just nothing that Salamence can do. I can bring in the Salamence, fire up the Brutal Swing. My opponent can always shield to guarantee land the Meteor Mash, and the Meteor Mash should basically just pick up the one-hit KO here. I don't even know if Salamence can survive. Well, I have to hope. Meteor Mash lands, Salamence basically gets knocked out. In comes the Florges. I'm not going to waste anyone's time, so I will concede the match. We move to the next match, hoping to not see Florges in this one, but we actually see something worse as I lead Shadow Tyranitar into the Togekiss. This actually might be a worse Pokemon to see overall because of how quickly it's able to spam out Aura Sphere. I farm up past the Stone Edge, bait with a Brutal Swing, try for an Aura Sphere catch, but my opponent has unbelievably good patience. And unfortunately, Salamence is getting one-shot by a Dazzling Gleam, and it's just all going wrong. I'm going to wait down the timer here because I'm going to be switch locked for a very long time, but oh my goodness, I am in for an absolute world of hurt. I bring in Tyranitar, they pivot out, saving Togekiss and sending in the Garchomp. Unfortunately, I do play to a CMP tie here that I do not win. I was trying to throw the Brutal Swing just to stall the switch timers so that I can pivot out into the Ursaluna, but I end up triggering the CMP tie, and a Brutal Swing of energy will land onto the Garchomp, which is honestly not a particularly efficient use of energy. Now I'm just going to bring in the Shadow Ursaluna. I think my only win con is if it's Metagross in the back. If it's Metagross in the back, I have enough energy stored on the Tyranitar that hopefully Tyranitar can just sweep. Back in comes the Kiss. I fire off the Ice Punch. Ice Punch hits for huge damage, and my opponent will be able to take the knockout now with Aura Sphere. But to my shock, they're on double nuke. They're on Flamethrower and Dazzling Gleam, and I think I can actually Dragon Breath down. I go for the full Dragon Breath down. Please be a Metagross. If it's Metagross, I'm gonna win, and it is the Metagross. I can't believe it. A game in which our Salamence just got one shot by a Dazzling Gleam and all looked lost. Somehow we're gonna win. This game still should have been over, but my opponent did not have Aura Sphere on the Kiss. We just have way too much Tyranitar energy, and my opponent will concede the match. Hopping into the final match, we're looking for a bit of redemption in this game as we lead into Metagross. The last time we led into Metagross, the game just completely removed a Brutal Swing from my Tyranitar, and that ended up costing me the match. So this time, let's see if we can get our revenge. Meteor Mash will be shielded after the Brutal Swing was able to land. My opponent makes a very nice catch and sneak, and unfortunately, I believe they snuck through a waterfall. Oh, that is such a nice play from my opponent. I'm going to farm up, go for the Brutal Swing. I have to hope Brutal Swing will take the knockout. Fly definitely would have KO'd, but I think Brutal Swing will take the knockout, but it doesn't. Gyarados hangs on, and that is a pretty rough miscalculation for me. Luckily, the Gyarados is not on Twister for some reason. They're on Crunch, and Crunch doesn't actually hit for a lot of damage. My opponent brings in the Metagross. Metagross able to outpace, and unfortunately, I'm just going to have to let the Salamence go. I can't afford to go down 2 shields. Now I can bring in the Tyranitar and look to overfarm quite a bit. I don't really know what I could beat in the back, but I have to hope that Ursaluna can do something. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded, so my opponent really doesn't like the Tyranitar, it seems. I feel very comfortable shielding back. Can I ever get a Dragon Breath down? My opponent pivots out, they send in Hydreigon, and that's basically the perfect Pokemon that I could see. Dragon Breath hitting for super effective, the threat of a Stone Edge forces them to shield the Brutal Swing bait, and now I can send in the Shadow Hundo Ursaluna. Come on, Ursaluna, I need you to tank these hits. They go for the Brutal Swing. I can very comfortably take a Brutal Swing, but can I survive a Fly or a Dragon Pulse? I have to hope. They go for the Fly. Ursaluna survives. We get the Ice Punch, and that's going to instantly end the game. Because my opponent has Shadow Claw on Metagross, it's double resisted. They can never farm down. Ursaluna gets the full tackle down of Metagross, and that is a good game. I ended up having an absolute blast getting to run this team in the Master Premier Cup. As I mentioned at the start, this is probably one of the worst teams that you could run in the Master Premier Cup. I do not recommend it whatsoever. This team feels like it's ABA or even AAA weak to everything. You have 0 Pokemon that beat Florges. You have 0 Pokemon that beat Togekiss. You are triple weak to King Gambit. There's so many Pokemon that you just have no play against. Primarina would also be a pretty big problem. The best Primarina counter on the team is the Dragon Tail user, because at the very least you resist Waterfall and you can spam out Fly. This team is incredibly weak to everything. I guess it shows that sometimes a truly terrible team can get some wins. I am a very lucky person when it comes to Rocket Grunts. I showed my Rocket Medal on stream recently, and I was at 5,135 Rocket Grunts done lifetime. So to have 3 Shadow Hundos out of only 5,100 Grunts is incredibly good luck. And add to that the fact that the 3 usable Hundos in the Master Premier Cup, and I have just been absurdly lucky with Shadow Pokemon. I'm probably never going to get another Shadow Hundo Pokemon for the remainder of my Pokemon Go days, but you know what? I used my luck early, and I'm very happy with the Shadow Hundos that I have. I would say, of the 3 Pokemon on this team, the Shadow Salamence actually ended up kind of being a surprise MVP. Salamence's insane spam with firing off these Brutal Swings was able to catch Metagross off guard in quite a few games, and it proved to be a pretty valuable safe switch, as it can hit pretty hard neutrally with Fly as well. So, Tyranitar, I was definitely expecting it to be the Pokemon that carried, and it definitely carried in most of the games. Salamence performed better than I expected, still not amazing, and Shadow Ursaluna is unfortunately a pretty sad mon, but if it ever gets a good fast move like Shadow Claw, it would definitely be the best Pokemon in the entire Master Premier Cup. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let me know down in the comments, are you enjoying these Master Premier uploads? I've been having a lot of fun in the Master Premier Cup, so I'm hoping to keep rolling throughout the course of the week. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. Thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.